there's a distinction, isn't there, between simple bird photography, I think, and adding the ethical on in front. So I guess we could start off by, you could describe what is ethical bird photography. What does it involve?
Mhm. Well, basically, it's just putting the bird first. So you put the subject first. And if you do that, um, the rest just comes naturally. So you don't bait, you don't chase them, you don't flash them or disturb them, deliberately disturb them in any way. Don't do nest photography, don't use a flash, those kind of things. So you're photographing nature naturally.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Birding Today podcast. I'm your host, Thomas. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, you will notice that I'm not in the usual area, and I don't have my classic Birding Today t-shirt on. And the reason for that is because I'm currently in Melbourne, and it's much colder down here, so I've got a couple of extra layers on. One extra layer. It's a bit grey out there, but it's quite different from Cairns. But today is a good day because it's another episode of the show. So thanks for being here. So I'd like to give a shout out actually to one of my listeners who actually wrote in quite a while back, way back in May, and I never got around to shouting her out. And so that is to Heidi from Tasmania, I believe. Heidi Krajewski. So thanks for writing in, Heidi. Back in May, she actually said, "Been meaning to write for a while. I've been enjoying your podcast. Really loved hearing the interview with Karen Dick. Great to have a bit of Tassie content," which I agree with. And there's actually, just as a heads up, there's a couple of Tassie-focused episodes coming up for you Tasmanian birders down there. So that's going to be good. Stay tuned for those. So on to today's episode, which I had a really good chat with Kim about ethical bird photography, which I'm sure will interest a lot of you. We touch on things like playback and try not to disturb birds and all that kind of stuff. So I will stop my rambling and we'll jump right into the episode. So again, thanks everyone for being here, and I really appreciate all of you, each and every single one of you listeners. It really motivates me to keep this up, so thank you. All right, see you on the other side. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Birding Today podcast, where birders come together to discuss the joy of birding. I'm your host, Thomas Doerig. Today's guest is an ethical wildlife photographer with a deep love of and respect for nature. Her images have received national and international awards, including gold medals and a coveted FIAP Blue Badge. She was a finalist for 3 consecutive years in Australian Geographic Nature Photographer of the Year, and listed in the International Who's Who of Nature Photographers. She has judged state, national and international competitions, but more important than any of this is her conviction that the subject is always more important than the photograph. She loves knowing that her framed prints bring joy to fellow nature lovers, and that her images are widely used for conservation purposes. So this is going to be a fabulous episode, I think, and a very interesting one. So please welcome Kimberley Whitcher-Wormald on the show. How are you, Kim? Thank you so much for your time.
Hi, thank you, Thomas.
This is fabulous, and I'm excited to get into this one because I don't think I've really touched on ethical birding and ethical bird photography a lot on the show. So it's something that I really want to delve into today, because it's a big part of birding, isn't it? And there's a lot of things to discuss around the proper way to bird, and like I just read out in the intro there, that the subject being more important than, the photograph or the observation in a way. So I'm excited to get into that. But before we do, the main center of the show, the central topic of the show, is the joy of birding. So what brings you joy in birding?
Everything. I love it. I just love birding, and I think I'm a lucky photographer in that I was a birder first, a lucky bird photographer, I should say. So it just means that you have more awareness, obviously, of being able to see and hear birds, looking for those little movements and listening all the time. And people think you're a bit distracted and strange. And then you point to something on the path that they can't see. I mean, it's quite, yeah, and all those little surprises that you get, like you never know what you're going to see. Like I dipped today on a flame robin, but there was the most beautiful little white-browed scrub wren that I've ever seen. I mean, they live at my place. I see them all the time. But this one was at another spot, and the colours on it were amazing. It was beautiful. So every little thing about it, really.
Definitely, yeah. White-browed scrub wrens are really, really beautiful. Actually, if you get a good look at them, and sometimes when they jump around on the forest floor, and they jump into a puddle of sunlight, a patch of sunlight, they just light up. It really is. Those moments are special. And I think the joy of birding is it's a wonderful thing to keep exploring. And so the other sort of introductory question that I like to ask is the spark that first appeared in your life. What kind of thing sort of got you into it? Was it an event, or was it gradual, or were you always interested into birds? What was sort of the catalyst for your passion of birding?
Yeah, well, right from day one, I think I was born in a tiny little 16-foot caravan, and so I was outside all the time. Like when I was little, like there wasn't much room in there, and we're right at the edge of a beautiful bushland, so there were birds everywhere. And two of my very earliest memories, one is of my dad using a matchstick to splint a sparrow's broken leg. It was just amazing. My dad was a bricklayer, big hands, and there he is with a matchstick splinting this sparrow's leg. And my mum talking to magpies, always say good morning to the magpies and pointing things out to me. So right from very early days, I was fascinated by birds. And I was hyperactive, like I'd climb up trees and be crazy and running around. But if I saw anything in nature, whatever it was, I'd just sit and watch it, and it was quite bizarre. It was like, and I still love that, like just sitting and watching what happens.
Yeah. So you were always surrounded by that. That happens a lot, I think. Because you're so at that young age. Kids are so easily influenced by what they're surrounded by, and I think that speaks a lot into birding as well. And so and then I guess the photography aspect of it came later. Is that right?
Yeah, much later. I'd really wanted to do bird photography. I love looking at beautiful photographs of birds. And back in 2002, I went to a camera shop and said, I want to photograph birds. I love birds and I want to photograph them. And they said, oh, we've got just the thing for you. And they sold me this tiny little point and shoot. And I walked out swinging it on its string, all excited. I knew nothing about bird photography. And I had a go, and I had spotted pardalotes nesting here at the time. So I was seeing them a lot, and the herons and stuff that had come to the garden. I could not get a decent shot of anything. And I just thought, I'm just not good enough. No, I've just got to enjoy other people's photographs, and it's not something I can do. And then 10 years later, exactly, BirdLife Australia sent round an email with competition winners of bird photographs. And they were beautiful photographs, and I sent them off to family and friends saying, look at these shots, they're so beautiful. And then I saw underneath, and it was all Canon, Nikon, Canon. I thought, I think I had the wrong gear. And so I did some research and went and bought some gear that worked. So it was really fun.
Yeah, that's a great story. It's often from humble beginnings that we start our passion, and the gear progresses, and with time the technology progresses as well.
Yeah.
Also in terms of the software. Just as a side note, do you do a lot of photo editing as well, or?
No, because I don't go in for those competitions now, and I actually started going in for them because I wanted some really objective feedback and to be inspired by other photos. but I still nearly always follow the nature guidelines. So the FIAP and the PSA organisations, they're the international organisations for photography honours that I've had anything to do with. They're the main two, and they have very strict rules on nature photography, and that includes post-processing as well.
Interesting.
So you can't add anything. You can't remove anything except by cropping, and basically there's a lot of rules about subjects and inclusions, but basically it needs to be natural and recognizable, and so I'm very basic with my post-processing.
I guess that comes around to kind of like basic color correction, stuff like that, subtle.
Well, colour, it would do if there was a cast to it, but there usually isn't. Like, the gear's pretty nice, and but you can do dodging and burning, so lifting your exposure if you need to a bit, or basic things like that.
Thank you for listening to the Birding Today podcast. It's great to have you with us. If you're enjoying the show, don't hesitate to leave a positive review on whichever podcast app you're using at the moment. This really helps with getting the podcast up in search results and reaching more people. Thank you, and back to the show. And I want to go also into the ethical side of things now, because there's a distinction, isn't there, between simple bird photography, I think, and adding the ethical in front. So I guess we could start off by, you could describe what is ethical bird photography. What does it involve?
Mm-hmm. Well, basically, it's just putting the bird first. So you put the subject first. And if you do that, the rest just comes naturally. So you don't bait, you don't chase them, you don't flash them, or disturb them, deliberately disturb them in any way. Don't do nest photography, don't use a flash, those kind of things. So you're photographing nature naturally.
Mm-hmm. And why should we do that?
Obviously, because it's better for the birds.
Right.
It's better for me too. I'd hate to think that I'd distressed a bird in any way. And also, I think you get much better photographs out of it too. Like, you get, instead of those fluffed up photographs of birds staring aggressively at the camera, like really distressed birds, you get pictures of birds behaving naturally. And I think that's a better look. And on the flash side of it, you get the nuances of light, that show, give more of a 3D look of your pictures, that I much prefer those nuances of natural light.
Yeah, that makes sense. And when did you, so there were several stages that we've been covering up until now. First, your love of nature and birds that started very young, and then sort of into photography. When did the ethical part of it come to light for you? Was there a trigger that you said, oh, actually, we've got to be careful about this and be ethical? When did that come into the picture?
Yeah, I love that question. I think I always intended to be ethical. I have never used a flash. I've not baited. But I did in the past. I heard that thing where you take a photo and then you go a bit closer and take another one. And I would not do that anymore. I did do that in the early days. Like, there'd be, like, I've got a brown falcon in my mind of when the last time I did that. And I just thought, that this isn't right. Why would I keep creeping closer till I flash it? Just watch it. Yeah. And maybe it'll come to me. And that works brilliantly well. Sometimes nest photography, I did, like, I've got a lot of birds that nest at my place, and I did photograph some grey fantails. I reckon I was about, I could measure it because I know where the nest was. I was probably about 20 or 25 meters away from the nest with a long lens. And so there's a whole load of twigs in between it. They're not pretty photographs, but I wouldn't even share shots like that anymore. So yeah, I just don't feel that that's right at all anymore. So it has evolved, partly stayed the same and partly evolved.
Yeah, you touched on the sharing of the photos, that's another thing, isn't it? Because now in this day and age, we're so connected, all of us, with just a click. What tell me about that side of it, like the sharing of photos, of ethical photos. Is there an ethics to that as well, to sharing photos? Do you see what I'm getting at, like the networking side of it?
Yeah, what do you mean, like, well, for one, I think it's great to share photos, and I love looking at other people's pictures too, and not the ones where the birds look all distressed. I don't like those. But there's a lot of fabulous photos out there that I love. But the only thing that's really coming to mind now is, well, I wish people wouldn't take or share nest shots. They're the easiest shots to take. Like, the birds are almost captive. You know where they're going to be, and the attention that a photographer can bring to those birds can attract predators. Like, there's ravens and magpies, currawongs out there looking for a quick feed, or the dead end trails can let foxes, maybe cats, I'm not sure, but definitely foxes, know where there's a nest or where to go exploring. And so I really wish that more places would ban nest shots. Quite a lot have now, but yeah, I wish competitions would ban them. I mean, they're beautiful shots to look at, but the risk to the birds, or there can be, and that some people who garden, so you might see a nest shot of a species that really protects its nestlings well, and there's this open shot of them. So either someone's been really close or they've gardened a bit, and that just opens up the nestlings to predation and to issues from the weather. So I wish more places would ban nest shots. There was another point to your question that I've.
No, that's really interesting. All of that, yeah, it's quite well known, isn't it, that if you go close to a nest and kind of, because we're big sort of mammals, and we're very visible in the environment. So beady eyes from currawongs and magpies are always kind of looking, I suppose, and they're very smart birds, those families of birds, and I think it's really important to remember that. Yeah.
The pets. Oh, sorry. Go on.
No. Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, the parent birds then, they might be coming out and facing off with the photographer too, when actually they should be foraging for their little ones and keeping an eye out for predators, not interacting with photographers.
It's resources spent doing something that they should be doing, something else that should be taking their time. Yeah. And so in a way, so to get to ethical bird photography, you have to start from ethical birding. What's the difference there, and if any? And what are the steps that birders should take to be more ethical, generally, if any thoughts come to mind there?
Do you know, something that's been bubbling up in me more and more over the last few years is I've really become shamelessly anthropomorphic. And, people are sometimes say, oh, I shouldn't be anthropomorphic, but I say, yeah, you should, because these are living creatures as well. They want the same basic things that we do. They want their family to be safe. They want food and shelter. And the more I watch birds behaving naturally, the more anthropomorphic I become. And when you're coming from that space, you can't help but respect them and want to do the right thing by them. And so when I see people chasing a bird for a better look or a better photograph, they think, and what do they get? Another photograph of a feathery bottom disappearing in the distance to add to their collection. If they just sat and waited, they've got the joy then of watching the bird, of birding, and that bird might come towards them. If it comes towards them, they've got the chance for amazing photos.
Definitely. And I think sitting down in nature and just, I really agree. And I think just absorbing nature and being quiet for a bit, and not even particularly looking for birds at one given point when you're in the forest. I think I brought this up in an early episode. I used to live near Coffs Harbour in Woolgoolga, a small seaside town in northern New South Wales, and there was a little inland a little bit up on the range. There was a little walk that I used to do, and there was a particular rock, quite a big rock that was on the side of the path. And I always used to look forward to, of course, I'd go birding and just get, taking it all in and doing my eBird list, of course, which we can touch on later maybe. But I always used to look forward to just sitting on that rock and just taking just a breath and it's in those moments that sometimes you see a surprise, and I think that's important to remember as well, just to take it all in as a whole, nature, and did you see what I mean?
100%.
Yeah,
I get it. And that's tied in with your previous question, and what you've just said actually reminds me of a story. When I was out, I was photographing the hooded plovers down on Phillip Island for the ranger out there would use my photographs to help educate the public about it. And the Hoodie Watch volunteers are amazing down there. And I was out on a beach one day, and one of the volunteers was checking the beach for make sure dogs were on lead and everything, so I could relax to get the photos. And I set up a long way from the Hoodie family. There were the 2 parents and 3 chicks, and they're foraging in the rocks a fair way from me. I'm lying on the sand with my gear set up, watching them, like a seriously long way away. And then they suddenly, after it was a couple of hours, like it wasn't quick, I was covered in March flybys, but they all came towards me. The whole family raced right towards me. And I got the most amazing shots of these chicks foraging. As they dart about so quickly, and they're going in after the little arthropods. And I got photographs of them close up because they'd run right to me and all around me. And the volunteer who was helping, she'd never seen anything like it. We were both just mesmerized. It was amazing. But if I'd gone after them, which I wouldn't have anyway, like an endangered species doesn't need me hanging around, but I never would have got a shot like that. It was just being that quiet entity in their environment. You get treated, I think sometimes we get blessed sometimes.
Definitely. And you've got to have a lot of patience, right?
Definitely.
Like maybe more so if you're really ethically inclined as you are, like the logical conclusion would be that you need more patience because you have the bird in mind and the bird's health, so to speak, and well-being in mind. So that necessitates perhaps more patience than someone who would kind of be a bit more active, if you see what I mean, in pursuing the bird to capture a photo of it. So I think that's also really impressive, because patience is, you gotta really love kind of having that passion and waiting and having the patience, right?
Which is quite hilarious, because apart from with birds and wildlife and children, my family would tell you I can't bear to shop. I can't sit through a movie. I'm just still quite hyperactive.
Yeah.
In other ways, apart from with children and wildlife, where I sat still for 7 hours in a hide watching a little fabric hide, watching a malleefowl mound up at Scotia. And you think, I can't wait for 2 minutes in a queue at a supermarket. It's really funny.
It is, isn't it? Isn't it like psychologically interesting that happens? Mm. But I suppose it's because you're spending 7 hours doing something you really love and you've got an objective in mind, whereas going to the shops is just a chore. But still, it really is interesting. I'm the same. I have quite a lot of patience with birds. And when I'm in nature, but it's mundane stuff like that is more difficult for me to be patient with. Definitely, yeah. And so, for anyone listening who is just starting out with bird photography or even just birding, what tips would you give someone listening, through the lens of ethics? Do you think? And are there any sort of pointers for people or information maybe that would be useful for a new birder or a new bird photographer to hear?
Well, I think for a new bird photographer, if they're not already a birder, because some come from birding, I think, and some come from photography. If they're coming from photography, I think go out and just bird. Don't take your gear, just take some binoculars and just go out and get to understand birds a bit before you start wanting to photograph them, because then you become very attuned, as birders are, to when a bird is feeling a bit distressed, and also what they're likely to do next. The simple things like a raptor on the fence pooping, that's time to not zoom in quite so close because they're probably going to fly. The basic things like that birders, we all know them, we don't even think about them. But whereas somebody new to it, I think it's great to go out and try and observe and learn that stuff before you start taking photographs. And then just listen to look for those really like, I love the small birds, the little bush birds. I really love them, little thornbills and things. and so you look for those tiny movements in the branches, or like today it was little spotted pardalite. It just the tiniest movement that's smaller than the leaf size, and you see it because that's what you're looking for. And sometimes what I've noticed too is if there's a bit of a breeze, I look for when it's a bit stiller, when there's a branch that's not moving quite the same as the others. And shadows, isn't it? Sometimes you look for shadows on the ground and you think, oh, there's half a dozen somethings up there. So just being really alert to what's going on around you.
Yeah, the alertness and the awareness, isn't it? Definitely.
And the joy of it, like I love that you mentioned the joy of birding, because when you're open to that, you can see the most wonderful things, magical things. It's really lovely. I take heart photos, Thomas. Like, it's really bizarre. This is like when I see something incredibly amazing and I completely forget to press the shutter button, even though the camera's in my hand. And so I call them heart photos now, and they're all perfectly focused because they're in my memory, like the white-bellied sea eagle out at the treatment plant in Werribee, and it's flying towards me along one of the tracks, the long tracks. Had a long time to watch it in perfect late afternoon light. Like, it was magnificent, not very far above the road, and I'm just watching it, and it wasn't till it went over my head that I thought, I have my camera in my hands. I didn't even think to use it.
Wow.
I think if you come from that place where your love of the birds is greater than your need to get a photograph, for me, that's what works anyway.
Something sprung to mind there. Because you've got obviously some really good gear, right, to take all these beautiful photos. You must observe through the camera. Is that what you mean? Like, you're observing the bird through the camera?
No, I was just looking at it. Then I had the camera in my hands. Like, I could have lifted it up, and I had plenty of time to take a good shot of it. Plenty of time. But I was just loved what I was looking at so much. I didn't think of the photograph. I just thought I was just enjoying what I was seeing. So I guess it's part of being in the moment as well, isn't it? That we get from birding and feeling that real sort of oneness with nature that is so, can't think of the word for it, special.
Yeah. And it zaps you into the present, So something I've experienced is that, when you're walking around, the bush or on a trail in the forest, sometimes when you're just walking, you're alert and stuff, but your mind does wander a bit. Mine does anyway. Mine just think about work or think about life, but as soon as I see a flurry of movement or a bird, it's like, oh, I'm right back into the present, and that's so powerful. It's like, wow, that something can do that and zap you back to where you are in space and in time. I was up at Mount Lewis a few weeks ago with my dad. He came up and we went birding up at Mount Lewis, and I got the chowchilla.
Nice.
And it's just like your senses are heightened. It's really a strange
physiological experience to see a lifer, and especially when it's in a beautiful environment. It's like, wow, what's going on? You know, what's going on when us humans see these new birds, and it's like, you know, it's a mystery, and that's why I like to talk about this on the show with different guests, because, you know, I love the different insights that I get, and that listeners get too. So yeah, it's lots to discuss.
Yeah, we're lucky, aren't we, to be birders? And I think it's great how many more people got into birding during lockdown. That's been fabulous, I think, and great. Hopefully, will be really good for the environment too, with more people barracking for, you know, bushland to be looked after properly and maintained and not developed. And
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about, we touched on this just before I hit record, but tell us a bit about where you live, sort of specifically in terms of birding, and where you do most of your birding and bird photography.
Okay. Well, I live in the foothills of the Dandenong Ranges. I've got a small land for wildlife property that's called Karawa, which is one of the Aboriginal Indigenous words for plenty of birds sit down here. So
Really?
yeah, it was a perfect name. And yeah, so I've been here a long time now, and I've got 139 species here. So I do quite a lot of my bird photography here. Not doing much here at the moment because so much stuff's nesting. So I'm just letting it go, letting it be. But I do love going to a few places. I love Portland when the gannets are in. I love, I absolutely adore the Mallee, and you know, some of the drier places I love, like, you know, Scotia and Ned's Corner and Blue Pots and Hattercorkine, you know, those sort of places I really love.
Yeah. I touched on that with Michael Gooch, who operates Explore the Mallee in a previous episode. And yeah, the Mallee is absolutely phenomenal, and for photography as well. The light you get out there, you know, sometimes is just.
Yeah, I've been up to Michael's place, and Louise, it's wonderful.
Lovely. Yeah, I'd love to get up there. Yeah. Fabulous. And there's so much potential, I think, not only, you know, in all habitats, I think. And so what's your favorite situation in which to be photographing birds? Do you like to go out on your own, or do you operate in groups sometimes? Do you go with friends, or?
Not many friends would have the patience to sit with me as long as I like to. I actually I prefer to go out on my own and to be on my own, because other people can get a bit toey and want to move on, and I might be happy to spend another 3 hours or more waiting for what, you know, may or may not happen. And plus, on the couple of times when I was out with other photographers, I'd see things that were a bit upsetting, and yeah, I don't like to see that anymore. And I actually don't think that these people meant to harm the birds. I don't believe they did, but they're just thinking about it differently. Like I was watching, I think it was chestnut-breasted manakins years ago, coming, and I'd been sitting on a bank, and they were working their way across the grasses towards me, and then so I was part of a group, but I was off on my own, and then the rest of the group came up, and one of them were like, "Whoa, mannequins, I'm going after them." And I was like, no, just wait, they're coming towards us. But he didn't wait, and he raced down, and off they all went. And I just think it's a shame. And I don't think he was just wanted a photograph. He wanted to get closer. And yeah, I prefer to go by myself a lot. Though I do take people out to the friends and photographers out to the treatment plant, because then they know we're going to be in the car from dusk till dawn, the opposite way around, dawn till dusk.
Hello everyone, just a quick update from me. Kim very thoughtfully emailed me after our recording finished wanting to highlight how much she enjoys birding and bird photography with her like-minded friends. She feels blessed to know so many excellent birders and patient photographers, which I think was really, really thoughtful of her. So, wanted to make sure to include that. Back to the show.
Have you done much traveling and photographing around the country in other states?
Well, I've done a lot of traveling around the country, but and I do love going to the deserts. I lived in Darwin for a while, but a lot of the some of it I was just a birder, not a photographer. And yeah, when you mentioned seeing the lifer there, you reminded me of the first time I saw the purple-backed fairy wren, called variegated then, but that was in the most amazing place, and I'll never forget that feeling of seeing this just beautiful little family of birds in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
It was down a big gorge in the Great Sandy Desert, so you couldn't even see the gorge from up the top. You had to climb down into it, and then it was massive, and there was this little oasis at one end, and in there was this family, like everything was so parched and dry, and there was this beautiful little family of these fairy wrens. It was like magic.
Yeah. Where do you think that magic comes from? Where do you think the source of it is? And pardon me if it's being too philosophical or psychological or anything like that, but I'm interested in that, with the ultimate source of where our wonder and joy comes from. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
It is.
It's inexplicable, isn't it? Like, because it just fills you, doesn't it? Like the magic, and like you said, you completely lose track of time. I did have someone who was trying to get me to meditate once. I can't bear it. Like, close my eyes, I might miss something. Like, no, I can't meditate. And then when they had done a bit more research, they came across something else, and it was called contemplation. And they said to me, I reckon that your type of meditation is contemplation when you're birding, because you get lost in the moment, and you go off, you say you're going to be an hour, and 5 hours later you come back, and like I thought, so that's quite interesting. Maybe there's something in that.
For sure, I think so. Yeah, and it's a journey, isn't it? We're always discovering new things, and birding is a journey. Everyone has a birding journey, and so to shift the topic somewhat, I don't know your answer to this. Do you use eBird?
Can I go now?
You're not a fan?
Oh no, I really should use it. I think it's brilliant. And if I'm going somewhere new, I might look up what's around.
Right.
But I have never entered information on it, and I'm embarrassed to say that. But I think it's, I've heard you on other podcasts talk about that. So I thought about it a bit over the last while. But I think when I was doing surveys for the new Atlas of Australian Birds, that was all done on paper. We do our little tick and our little B for breeding or whatever it was, and then take them off to the person who input the data for us. It was a long time ago, and then when that finished up, there's about 6,000 people around the country that were doing regular surveys. It was wonderful, and that book is amazing, but it's so not needed now with all the new technology. And then because of where I live, my internet was disgraceful, so I didn't do anything really. But now I've had NBN for a year and I'm still not using it, so I'm just a bit embarrassed. I don't blush very often. Maybe I'm blushing.
So why? That's interesting. Let's dig a little bit deeper into that. Why have you been somewhat reluctant to start using eBird?
I think maybe the time spent on it. I don't know. I should get into it. And iNaturalist, like loads of people have said to me, you should do that for your place. Maybe it's something I'll start next year. Because I think it would be valuable, and I think it's great how many people are using it.
And I think, yeah. It's definitely multifaceted, isn't it? It's so complex now, and because the technology is now so complex, the issues become complex as a result. You know, because and I've touched on this. You know, eBird has tremendous advantages for conservation and science, but it also endangers, you know, or is that the right word? Disturbs some birds because the information is so public, that you can pinpoint where a rare bird has been seen, and
Yeah.
the disturbance aspect of it. There's lots to talk about there.
Well, that's something you actually asked me earlier about sharing, and
Mm,
I didn't say, like, I used to go out to the he-hoes and be part of the supplementary feeding program, and of course you don't have your GPS activated on your camera when you're doing that stuff, and there's certain times when you shouldn't share the location of a rare find, or yeah, definitely agree with you on that.
yeah. Um, but yeah, it's all very interesting, I think, and birding is quite unique in that sense, and bird photography is quite unique because there's so many other animals out there, but bird photography and birding is so popular now, and growing. And like you said, in the lockdowns, paradoxically, I would say people have turned to nature, and those days are behind us now. But hopefully, people can keep that up, and so I wanted to shift also to your Facebook group, because that's ultimately how I found you. But although I think Craig Bowes recommended you, I don't know if you know Wild Portraits.
Yeah, beautiful photos.
Yeah.
Really?
And so yeah, what was I getting at there? Yeah, you're the Facebook community, because you're quite active there, aren't you? So you must get a lot of joy that way as well. Is that right?
Through the ethical bird photography page.
Mm.
Yeah, it's great, and it's growing slowly. It's lovely to have a place where people talk about that openly and share photographs of birds behaving naturally. I do really love that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you've also got the Lirra blog. Is that how I say it?
Yeah, I've got Lirra and the Lirra Facebook page, which is sort of probably. I still update Lirra every week, every Friday. I update that post, but the Facebook page, every couple of days I'll probably put a new shot up there, and it's really great. It's lovely to be part of that wider birding community, isn't it? Especially in lockdown. Like we one of the guys from ethical bird photography page came up with the idea of posting a bird going through the alphabet with
Oh,
their name.
brilliant! That's
And
great.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a great idea, and so we did that, and I did that on my Lirra page as well, and we actually went through the alphabet twice. And we could have done more, but that was a really beaut way to connect with people as well, and very lonely for all of us, really. And yeah, it was good. It was, I'd have people emailing me and messaging me to say thank you, but in reality, it was great for me to have a connection with other people too.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. There's something in that, the joy of birding being social. There's an aspect to that. Just to close on the discussion of ethical birding, and kind of wrap that up. I'm interested in your thoughts on playback. Do you think that's part of the of the ethical debate? What are your thoughts
Yeah,
on playback?
definitely.
Mm.
Definitely. I didn't mention it before, did I? I don't use Playback. That's probably why wasn't on my mind. No, I don't use it. And it has been banned in some places for really good reason, I think. And because basically we don't know what we're saying to the bird. Like, and it's been proven that it can impact breeding. Like the male keeps going out to fight off this interloper into its territory, and the female figures, well, he's pretty hopeless. He can't get rid of that intruder. I'm not gonna have any nestlings with him, like that. And what else might it be doing that we're not even sure of? And we don't need to. We don't need to do it. What difference really does it make to us whether we see that species that day or not? It'd be nice to, we'd like to, but would we do it if we knew it was going to harm them? And if we would, we shouldn't be a birder. And we don't know if it's going to harm them or not. We don't know if that would be the last chance that male's got to prove that he's a real man or real male bird worthy of fathering those chicks. We don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I don't use it.
Yeah, very good points there. I hadn't. You touched on something that I was going to mention. The fact that there's still so much we don't know, really. That the effects of things that we still haven't quite understood. What about using it in short bursts, very sparingly? Is that okay?
I've read things that say if you're going to use it quietly, use it sparingly. I still wouldn't use it. I can totally understand the temptation to do it. I totally get that. But realistically, when it would be me, it's just me looking at that bird, and I might really want to see that bird. I really want to see a mallee emu wren. Seriously, really want to see one. I've lost count of the times I've been to Haddock-Colquhoun, and people have told me, go 1 kilometre down this track and on the left and you'll find them. I haven't found them yet. And they say, use Playback, they'll come straight out. And I'm, no. Yeah. Hopefully I'll see them one day, and when I do, it will be because they felt like coming out when I was there, not because I've used some call that I don't know what it's saying to lure them out or distress them.
It's so interesting.
At the same time, I would really love to see one that hopefully will.
That's right. Yeah, you have those two sides, so to speak, and it's really interesting to discuss it as birders and as bird photographers as well. Because it's somewhat controversial, isn't it, in birding?
Very. Very. And there's people obviously who use it so loud and so long that other people tick that species because they think they've heard it. So that's a bit of an issue too. And it's just. Yeah, I can understand the temptation, definitely.
Yeah.
Today, when I'm looking for the robin, it's been sighted out there. The flame robin. Friends told me they've seen it out there for the last few days. So I wandered out today and I didn't see it. But I don't even have the apps for playing callback. So yeah, I just thought I'm either going to see it or I'm not.
The time has come for the Species of the Episode segment, which today features the sacred kingfisher. I recorded this video and audio at Banyule Flats Reserve in Melbourne last year. This species is a medium-sized kingfisher that actually rarely eats fish, instead mostly feeding on insects and a wide range of other small animals.
Let's look at closing the episode with these closing questions, and I always look forward to these questions, as listeners will know, because this is the point where each birder is a little bit different, with their favorite bird or their favorite destination. I've given the questions away now, but so what's your favorite bird, Kim?
I'm kind of tempted to say whatever one I'm looking at. Because I do love watching all of them, even the other people might think of very ordinary. But it's like the pleasure I got today with that with the colouring on that white-browed scrub wren. It's just beautiful, and I love that. But I love rufous fantails. For some reason, I love the little birds like the brown thornbills and the striated thornbills. They're in my garden all the time. I've come to be very, very fond of them. And the fairy wrens, the purple-back fairy wren. I love them. And on the so but on the bigger birds, the yellow-tailed black cockatoos, the way they move and their call, just goes straight to my heart.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely echo that thought, especially their slow, relaxed, buoyant flight. Nothing like it.
Yeah, it's amazing, mesmerizing to watch, isn't it? And that call, I feel like it's like prehistoric call that they have.
Yeah. Well, birds are dinosaurs after all, that's... And sometimes you're reminded of that, with the yellow-tailed black cockatoo's call, or up here in Cairns, the cassowary, You see a cassowary, like, yeah, that's a dinosaur, Crazy. Really, really interesting to look at that evolutionary thing, the evolutionary aspects of birding as well, how it's, there's so much to discuss, and we need another podcast for it, but it's been wonderful having you. One last question. Well, actually, let's make it two last questions. Do you have a dream bird that you'd love to have an amazing photo of at all? What species comes to mind? Maybe the Mallee emu wren, but is there anything else that comes to mind?
Yeah, definitely the Mallee emu wren. When you say that, like, it's quite interesting because I'm sort of organic, I suppose, in the way that I bird and photograph. It's almost what happens. It's just reminded me of a photograph that I called the pollinator. That's of a New Holland honeyeater. So a species that many of us see everywhere, and it had its head right in a flax lily. I did a burst of shots. The 3 shots in a row. One, its head's right down in this flax lily. The next one, it's lifted up, and there's this just sunbeam of bits of pollen all around its head in the air. It's amazing. And the next shot in the burst, so this is very close together, these shots. It's sitting there with not a single speck of pollen in the air. And things like, I like seeing things like that. And they're not really things that you can imagine. Or like the gannet, when I saw a parent gannet put this chick in a headlock, because it had been hassling the adult bird for food, and it had been fed, and then it hassled immediately again, whacking the bill and carrying on, and it got put in this immediate headlock. So I think the things that I love are things like that, when or the fairy wren at my place here with the yellow petal in its bill, things like that you can't really anticipate in the same way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that makes sense.
Who knows what's going to come next?
That's right. Yeah, it's the potential, I think, that is really exciting about birding and contributes to the joy of birding. And the destination side of things. Do you have, maybe internationally around the world, if you had 2 weeks to go and take pictures of birds, all expenses paid for, where would you choose to go? Anywhere in the world?
So my head is zapping around the map now.
Yeah.
South America. I'd always thought I'd get to South America. I haven't been there yet. I've been through the Panama Canal, and a tropic bird flew over at dawn. That when I was on the boat, that was beautiful. But yeah, so somewhere there would be amazing. Yeah, probably somewhere. Do a bit of research and see Peru or Costa Rica, or I don't know what would be best. Where would you go?
Oh, good question. Well, I've always, and I've said this before in the podcast, I've always been intrigued by underbirded locations and remote locations, corners of tropical Africa or something like that. Yeah. Be like, wow, what's hiding out there? So many amazing birds, like the Congo, in the heart of the Congo rainforest. What's in there? Like it's mm-hmm. so much potential. Again, there's a potential that we referred to, but. Well, that's our time's up, Kim. It's been so good having you on the show. You've been a fantastic guest, and yeah, thanks for the time today.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
It's been really good, and hopefully down the line, when you're up in Cairns, we can go out to the Esplanade and see if we can take some cool pictures of birds.
That was great. Thanks, Thomas.
All right, thanks, Kim. See you later. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to or watching this episode of the Birding Today podcast. Really good to have you with us, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation that I had with Kim as much as I enjoyed taking part in it. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can write to birdingtoday@gmail.com. If you've got anything to say about the show, I can give you a shout out if you want. You know the drill by now, hopefully. So thank you for being with us, and I will see you next week for episode 5 of this season. Have a good day, everyone, and happy birding. See you soon.